I'm going to share with you some of the best gardening advice you're probably going to get all season. We're not going to sugarcoat it, and everybody needs to hear this. To say it's been a struggle is probably an understatement, judging by what I'm seeing online. A lot of problems this year. I mean, just look at the sky right now. We got this wildfire smoke. It smells like chemicals out here. I don't know if that's from the wildfires or the Roundup being sprayed about a half-mile away. You know it's rough when even the mullein is struggling. Lots of different problems, and I came up with a fantastic solution. So if you like this advice, let me know in the comments. Like this video and share it with your friends. There are 2 steps to solve all these problems. The first step is to let it die. The second step is to learn from it. Here's a perfect example in here. We got some cucumbers. Just look how terrible these plants look. It's not a total loss in here. I mean, we are getting some cucumbers here, like this Indian snake, and we got a nice dragon egg in here. So, some cucumbers. I got a couple more before this, but that's pretty much it. All that hard effort to start these cucumbers inside, plant them out, water them, take care of them, and this is what we got. I was all excited. I thought I was gonna grow some melons this year. They were gonna cover this whole fence and look beautiful. Well, here's my melons. Not doing too good. There's one culprit responsible for all this tragedy going on in the garden here. And here they are, right in here. You look under that flower, cucumber beetles. You know, all it takes is one bite from one cucumber beetle to completely kill an entire plant. And it doesn't help because there are tons of these guys all over all these plants. And there's actually a second culprit that helps spread this, and that is the squash bug. If you've grown cucumbers, this is probably a familiar sight where the stems kind of get all hairy, everything starts to droop and start dying back. This issue is called bacterial wilt. My solution to cucumber beetles and squash bugs for the longest time was planting burpless varieties that didn't attract cucumber beetles or squash bugs. Well, this year it just hasn't mattered. They found everything. And my solution was to let it die and learn. So I learned if I want to have cucumbers and have an extended harvest, I'm going to have to build something with some kind of insect netting to keep these bugs away. Other options would be using some kind of pesticide, organic or conventional, depending on how you garden. That costs a lot of money. You trying to grow cucumbers that cost like $10 each? I'm not. And if you're going to go that route, you might as well just buy cucumbers from the store because they'd probably be a little healthier than the stuff you're using on them to keep the cucumber beetles away. So let it die and learn. Cucumber beetle squash bugs, problem, it's not going away. I'm not going to come out here smashing cucumber beetles for hours on end for a couple cucumbers. Here's a good one. How about the tomato blight? This plant's not looking too good. It's got a couple tomatoes on it here. But look at all them spots on there. The blight has got this plant. So what can you do about blight? A lot of people searching how to save my plants from blight. Well, let it die and learn. I've been lucky enough to find a solution to this problem years ago, but I'm still a glutton for punishment. I like trying to grow new varieties that are probably susceptible to blight, but the best way to defeat blight is to grow blight-resistant varieties. There's plenty of them out there. The Cherry Bomb F1 Hybrid. Just look how nice all this foliage is looking on these tomato plants. No signs of blight. Really tasty tomatoes on here too. And what happens is at the end of the season, even blight-resistant varieties are gonna get the blight when it gets cooler and wetter out in the fall. The cherry bombs last longer than any other variety. See, we got a little bit of blight forming on the Berry's Crazy Cherry here. So this plant's gonna eventually die from the blight, but before it does, it's gonna give me tons of these really tasty cherry tomatoes. It's just something you gotta deal with. Not all tomatoes are gonna do good in your climate. So don't fight it. Grow blight-resistant varieties. And in the meantime, let it die and learn. This whole entire fence row in the springtime, I planted thousands thousands of peas. And guess what? The chipmunks ate 99.9% of all of them. I even started covering my seeds with wire like this on the ground, and that still didn't stop them. They just went in through the ends here and dug up all the seeds or just dug underneath it. The small percentage that the chipmunks didn't get that actually grew when it was too hot, when they finally sprouted and ended up catching blight and dying. So what did I do? Naturally, I kept sowing more and more seeds, expecting different results. And guess what happened? All I did was get fatter chipmunks. So what did I do? I let it die and learned. See, once that pea growing window was over because it was getting too hot, I didn't have to worry about the peas anymore. I have all winter to sit here when nothing is going on and think about ways that I can create something that the chipmunks can't get into so I can grow peas. And at that point, it was time to focus on other stuff that gets me excited, like tomatoes and peppers. And speaking of peppers, man, it has been a rough year for hot peppers here in Heartland, Michigan. A lot of flowers, not much fruit set going on. Got a real late start here. We had super cold weather early on into June. We were getting frost almost the first week of June here. And I'd like to have these peppers out by that point, but I didn't get them out till maybe a week after that. And hot peppers like these reapers need a long time to produce fruit and get ripe. So with these, it's not really let it die and learn. It's just ignore them and see what happens. If I get peppers, great. If I don't, I need to realize I'm growing in Zone 5B in Michigan. Our weather is far from consistent. It's not the best place to be growing hot peppers. Instead of worrying about those, I can come in here and look at peppers that actually do good. Look at all these Chocolate Beauty bell peppers. They are so loaded, I had to tie them to this post because they are falling over. Right next to some nice carrots in here that are ready to pick. And this monstrosity here, I had a giant jalapeno cross with a Chocolate Beauty bell pepper by accident, and I saved seeds, and this is what we got. So we're gonna give that a taste pretty soon. And then we got some Jimmy Nardellos over here that are loaded with fruit. These taste really good. I already had a couple of these. And another one of my favorites, the Melrose. And look, we even have one little reaper setting here. That should be enough to ruin my day when I eat it. So what I learned, the sweet peppers always do good here. They seem to favor that cooler weather that we have going on. But when it comes to the hot peppers, like the reapers, maybe something I can do is start them earlier inside, grow them in larger pots indoors, and move them out sooner, but be able to move them back in if there's a frost, and then when it gets hot out, transplant them to the garden. A lot more work, but at least I'll definitely get hot peppers at that point. One thing you may have noticed if you've been following this channel long enough is this year I don't have any brassicas growing. I usually have lots of kale, cabbages. I usually just use it for chicken food. That's because the cabbage white butterflies and the slugs usually tear up all my plants. And honestly, I really don't eat that stuff too often, so I don't really see a point in growing it. But if you were gonna grow it and you were having the same issues, you're gonna have to do something like set up a garden bed. Maybe put some insect netting over it to keep the cabbage white butterflies out. Maybe use some garlic spray like I used to do to keep the slugs off. That works pretty good. But that's just another example of let it die and learn. I never cried because I had big heads of cabbage that were full of caterpillar poop and slug slime all over them. I just fed it to the chickens and retooled this year, and I just don't see a reason to grow it. So here's another issue I found this year that maybe some of you have. And my problem is food is taking over my garden. Imagine that, being upset that your raspberries are just spreading everywhere out of control, and same with the strawberries. Well, I had to step back for a minute and realize I'm getting upset that I'm growing a ton of food here. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We harvested so many raspberries and strawberries out of here. It's something that I realize it's just good to be thankful for. I mean, if these raspberries are starting to spread out here like they are now and over in this direction, doesn't mean I gotta come out here and spend all my time pulling them up now, I got all winter when all this stuff's gonna die back. This will be a barren wasteland. I'll have nothing to do. I can come out here and mess with it then. Am I gonna come out here and see my strawberry leaves turning all these weird red colors like this and try to Google different ways to fix it to make them green? No. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna ignore all these strawberries. They're gonna die back, and next year they're gonna come back fuller than they are now and give us tons of strawberries. And I know that because I've let them die and learned that no matter what, the strawberries are gonna come back. Maybe you had Japanese beetle problems this year, just like I had. There's a few left, but they're pretty much done for the season, but the damage has been done. The whole tops of this plant have been skeletonized. And look at all these poor grapes just dying for some foliage to help fill them out more. Definitely not gonna sit out here and cry about it. What I'm gonna do is realize that this plant is too big anyway. Let the Japanese beetles help me trim it up a little bit. And then all I gotta do is walk my way through all these bumblebees here, trying not to get stung as I make my way through all this comfrey. And just have a look at this grapevine. Look at these, all these massive sets of Concord grapes in here. We're gonna have a lot of grapes. You need multiple varieties of grapes in order to cross-pollinate and get grapes. So even if the Japanese beetles were beating up that grapevine back there, this grapevine is gonna be loaded. So let it die and learn. And in this case, we're not really letting it die, we're just letting it become food for the Japanese beetles and being thankful that we have plenty of other grapes to eat. So with everything in your garden, you have to ask yourself this one question. Is the effort to fix it worth the outcome? What is your time worth? Do you want to spend tons of money to get stuff like lettuce or even cucumbers? If something's not working out, just let it die and learn. You got a long off season to think of ways to fix your problems. But in the meantime, don't neglect the good stuff thinking about the bad stuff. Might not have been the advice you wanted to hear, but you know what? It works. So don't stress. Thanks for watching.